as an entrepreneur, you have to do all the hats. But if there's a hat that I know I'm not good at or I need support on, like that's when I call on a friend or I'll, bring in another consultant for that piece. So I think not having to do everything all the time for myself has been helpful.
Greetings. Welcome to the Life Empowered Living Room, where your host, Celeste Cuffie, is here. And I thank you for joining me on today. Life Empowered's mission is to reach, empower, and motivate others to access and utilize their God-given, their inherent talents and skills, building better families, companies, and communities worldwide. And today I'm so honored to be here with the incomparable, the amazing, the creative Kenge Adams. Thank you so much for joining me on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Celeste. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, as I was saying, even the vision statement for Life Empowered, you immediately, again, just jumped in my mind because when we think of these gifts and these talents and these skills, we often think of a monolith, one skill set doing one thing, and you're doing it for the rest of your life. But you have been able to tap into multiple. I'm sure there's still some you haven't even tapped into yet.
I learn every day.
But but you've
like,
been able to tap into all of these talents and skills that you have. And so I'm just grateful again for you being here. But with that said, let's start with a fun fact. Tell us something that people don't know about you generally.
Oh boy. Something that people don't know about me? I used to do gymnastics when I was little. And also, I did cheerleading for a little bit in high school, and I was the person who would run and jump in the air and do the splits in front of the pyramid.
Okay, so can you still do that today?
No, I actually was with a group of girlfriends a couple years ago, and we were just in a park, just having a picnic, and we're all like 40 plus. And the grass looked so beautiful and open, and like part of me was like, I just want to go do a cartwheel. And I did it, and I was hurt. I was like, why? I did the whole like stands with my hands up from like muscle memory. And then after that, I was like, I gotta go. I was like, this is not 1985, 90, So yeah, so that's something that I don't know if people know about me.
But you know what? So, and this is what I love about you. You did it, and then some years later, you were like, you know what? I'll try it again.
It was me and another girlfriend too. I don't know why we both did it. And then we both were like, girl, this is not good. I was like, how you doing today? I'm not good. Like, yeah. So, but it was just like, like you go back to a kid and you're just the moment. And I'm sure like we see like an open space and we want to run or we want to jump off something or whatever, play basketball and all the things. And then all of a sudden we do it and we're like, why did I do that? So that is one thing that I probably have to hang up my little, pom-pom song. I was like, never again. But that's something that I at least tried and I was like, okay, I'm good now. I can move on to just walking normal. Yeah.
But that for me symbolizes really, I think, the crux of this conversation today, which is I think of you, and you tell me how you think of you, but I think of you as a bit of a risk taker. I believe that you are willing to try new things. What do you think about that?
I think so too. I think that may be surprising for people because I think when people first meet me, they're like, oh, she seems, really buttoned up or whatever. But I think when people get to know me, they're like, oh, she's actually fun. Or she's actually a bit of a risk taker. She's done things, she's lived a life, So I think so. And even like at home, like I've always, when I talked to my dad about different projects when I was working, for companies, I would always take that project that was new, that was risky, almost like an entrepreneur mindset. I didn't know it at the time, but I always wanted something new. And my parents or my dad was like, no, just stay, with this stable project, stay where. And I'm like, no, I want to try this department or I want to try this. And I think that's always been something of interest to me is
Mm-hmm.
trying something new, and being a little bit of a risk taker and seeing what happens. Because I'm like, if I can deal with the worst thing that could
Mm-hmm.
happen from this, I'm okay. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it through, or sometimes I do just leap like I did with that cartwheel. But then I was like, but then I'm like, okay, you know, like let's pivot. Let's figure out, is this working? If not,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what's the next thing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you just said that your father would kind of guide you to kind of stabilize a little bit. Don't
Hmm.
take so many risks. Where do
Hmm.
you think you had that adventure side? Where did that come from then?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just from being like sheltered as a kid. I don't know. And I'm like, and they tell you like, come home right after school. You're like, yeah.
Sure thing. Sure thing.
I don't know. I guess that is true. I've always liked the fun side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, more of a risk, more of a risky thing. I liked adventures like in college, going on road trips with my friend, in a car across country to
Oh,
visit
wow.
other people at school. And like if my kids want to do that, I'm like, you can't be doing that. But I did all of that. Like I would go visit my husband, now, but and when we were dating, I would get on a Greyhound bus with my cousin in Chicago and go across country on a bus and standing at random places on my way to Atlanta. I just did that. and I was and I think about that and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I did that. But that's just something that I did. And then now it's like, okay, I probably won't do that again, but I just would do things that I,
Different.
thought
Yeah.
were interesting.
Yeah. But it's funny that it feels like it still shows up in different ways. And so, using kind of that cartwheel example where you you went out after it, you tried it, you felt it on the
I
back
felt
end.
it. Yes.
But I think that there's a level of confidence that you have to do something like that. To
Hmm.
say at 40 plus, granted, I haven't hit a flip in 20 years. I'm gonna run out here
Um,
and try to do it
I
now.
was like, I don't know.
So where did you get this confidence, and how do you maintain it once you feel,
Yeah.
oh, this didn't quite work like I thought it
Yeah,
was?
and it's funny because I feel like, and many people may have this, where I was really always not. I mean, and maybe am perceived or I have more confidence now,
Mm-hmm.
but I think growing up, I really didn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
I was always kind of like, I always had friends who were like the most popular people, and I was like the friend. So
Mm-hmm.
I would just kind of be part of the group or part of the thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think as I look back now, I'm like, oh, well, I did this, this, and this. So, okay, this worked out. Maybe this didn't work out, but I'm still okay. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been highs and lows in my life
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like, okay, if I got through this situation,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm okay because
Mm-hmm.
I built myself up once. I can do it again. And then I think too, like, I think inherently I have like the worst mix of people pleasing and and, and acts of service as my love language and the way I show love. So I used to like always people please and always do.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I think just trying to figure out, okay, what am I interested in doing?
Mm-hmm.
What makes me happy? I think just trying to go through that journey and figuring all of that out too has been helpful and boost my confidence because I would look for confidence I would value my confidence and how other people perceived me,
Mm-hmm.
or when other people told me I did a good job,
Mm-hmm.
then I did a good job, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily knowing internally that I'm doing something okay. So I
Mm-hmm.
think just understanding that, like, I'm not perfect, but yet I think I'm doing okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't need you to always validate me
Mm-hmm.
to feel confident. I think that builds confidence. And then also, I started mentoring other women entrepreneurs when I started my journey.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm a relatively new entrepreneur, but I've been doing a lot of this stuff for 20 plus years.
Right.
And then seeing their confidence grow and
Mm-hmm.
seeing them excel in what they do, then I'm like, oh, okay, I have some gifts that I can
Some
share
influence.
and help
Yes.
them, so that I can actually see it through others
Mm-hmm.
versus someone having to validate me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love how you've talked about the the worst mix of skill sets in terms of being a people pleaser and acts of service. I think that for me, that's been something that I've always dealt with. And what's interesting is I think this is the first year that I literally like came to the conclusion and the acceptance of the fact that I love to please people. And part of my frustration was I knew what I wanted, but I also knew what they wanted. And so I would have this internal tension of, do I deliver on what they want at the sacrifice of me, or I deliver what I want? And this is where the issue comes in, because I felt like that was a sacrifice of them. And we're always taught to put other people's first, put
Yeah.
others first.
Yeah.
And so what do you do now? I mean, now that you know that, you understand it, you've been walking in it, how do you stay there?
What I've done, and actually this really came as a testament just to where I am in my life now, is just like understanding those triggers, understanding those people. Because I'm really, really trying to walk in a space of like joy, grace, abundance, like just all the things that you want to meditate on. And surround myself with people who walk in that space. And I think for a long time, I walked with people who were not in that space, who caused me to feel not in that space. And so it's interesting that now that I'm getting more in touch with like my own spirit, my own mental health, my own wellness, what makes me happy, what brings me joy, when I'm around people that maybe I hadn't seen in like 6 months or a year, and they still have that energy, or they still have that spirit, or that negative vibe, it like affects me. Like I really, really feel that. And I'm like, you know what? I know I used to try to please this person. I know I'd bend over backwards for this person. But what is this serving me? Like what is this? How is this coming into my life? And it's physically damaging my spirit and my well-being, to the point where like it almost upsetting in a way. Like, so I've learned to love people from a distance. I don't just, say, well, I'm not going to, ever talk to you, that kind of thing. But it's just like, okay, you're in a different space. But for my own personal space, I have to do what serves me. And so if you want me to be around you and I'm around you, but it's damaging my spirit, I have to be like, okay, I can't be around you all the time because that's damaging my spirit. So it's just balancing yourself over the need. Like I'll still be there for that person if they call me, they need something. Yes, I'll be there, but I know I can't always keep them close to the point where it's damaging my spirit and it's making how I feel bad. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's just you just kind of have to like protect yourself too, to a degree.
Yeah, and you answered my question perfectly. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about people that are suffering silently because they haven't figured this out yet for themselves. What do you say to them? You talked about the triggers, right? And your triggers and my triggers may not be the same triggers, but how do you even coach someone or mentor someone to say, figure out what your triggers are? What are some things that they could do to identify them even, so that way they can make different decisions? Yeah.
I think you just have to listen to your body and your gut and your spirit within. Because it's almost like if you're walking down the street and you see a little fluffy dog, you feel good, like you're not scared. But if if you see a big dog and it's barking at you and your body physically changes, you know, okay, that's not a dog I want to pet.
What a
that's
great
not
analogy.
The dog.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like that. So when you see people who physically make you feel a different kind of way about yourself, or they maybe indirectly are putting you down, and you're like, did they say that? Was that really me? Was that really talking about me? Like, then you're just like, okay, that's a trigger. Like, I think your body knows those triggers, and when you start feeling anxiety or sadness, or you just don't feel like yourself around that person, or you can't be we talk about authentic self, they try to damper, your joy in some kind of way, or your laugh or your whatever kind of way to make
Mm-hmm.
you feel, then you know what, this is not a person that I want to really serve that closely in my
Mm-hmm.
life. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's hard if they're, your spouse or your family member. Sometimes it's hard to make that, switch. But if it's, depending on the situation, sometimes you just need to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to remove myself from the
Mm-hmm.
situation. It could be as easy as you're at a party and you're talking to someone and they're just extremely draining and
Mm-hmm.
they just drain your energy. Then you
Mm-hmm.
know what? Move around. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like say, bow out, move around, find somebody else, get some air. Um, just try to remove yourself from that
Mm-hmm.
situation,
Mm-hmm.
is what I try to do.
And that actually is a perfect segue into my next question that I have, because what I hear you saying really is that you're very self-aware and you've learned your triggers, you've learned how to create these boundaries around you. And as you said earlier, you've had over 20 years in corporate environments, and then you moved into the entrepreneurship arena where you're running your own organization. But can you tell me, how did you know that it was time to go get some air?
Get
Just
some
go
air.
ahead.
I need some air.
Yeah.
I don't always recommend this, what I did, people, but it was that trigger. It
Mm,
was, I spent, and I loved the company that I was at. Like, I mean, it was like a dream company,
mm-hmm,
love people there, but it was one specific person, like I don't want to call people out, but it was a situation with my
mm-hmm,
manager um, where it was a trigger for me.
mm-hmm,
And I felt like, I wasn't appreciated. Everything I did was like under the bus. And I felt like I was constantly trying to like prove myself.
mm-hmm,
So she would say, do XYZ. So I would stay up, I would do XYZ, I would do all the things. I even won awards in our group, different things, but it was never good enough.
mm-hmm,
I felt like it was just like political nightmare for me.
mm-hmm,
And I was like, and I think another trigger was I was, getting of a certain age. I was about to turn 50 and my mom passed away at 52.
mm-hmm,
And it caused me to rethink the trajectory of how I want to spend the rest of my career. I have a
mm-hmm,
good, 10 years left or whatever. How do I want to spend those 10 years?
mm-hmm,
Unfortunately, my mom did all the things, like she went to school, she raised her kids, they were just about to start traveling, all the things, and she got cancer and passed away.
mm-hmm,
And I said, I don't want to spend these next years not living
mm-hmm,
my best life.
mm-hmm,
And my husband and I got married when we were young, and we didn't have anything when we got married.
mm-hmm,
He was a student. We had kids over the first 5 years. So I was like, you know what? You know, I love my house. I love my cars. I love my accessories. But do I need them? And then that's the point where it was like, I remember this very fondly, and I started a journal, and I just asked my husband, I was like, can I quit today?
mm-hmm,
It was like a random day. It was not like, it was like, I might have had vacation. I could have just took a sick day. And he's like, I don't care. He's very chill. He doesn't care about material things. And I just started like having this whole like evil plan in my head about I could sell my house, get a duplex, live in half. Like I had this whole thing, like this whole,
mm-hmm,
and I just went in to work and I gave 2 weeks and I said that was it and I left. And I had no plan, no prospects. I was like, I'm gonna bet on me. I was like, you know what, maybe I'll consult. Maybe I'll take a year to
mm-hmm,
kind of figure my life,
mm-hmm,
things out. And my dad was like, you did what? But I was just like, and I literally had to spend a year just decompressing. Like,
yeah,
luckily, I did get projects and I did start bringing in income, which was helpful.
mm-hmm,
But I had to like go for walks. I
mm-hmm,
had to meditate. I
mm-hmm,
had to start working out. I had to do a lot of mental, like 20 years of like mental, something to kind of
mm-hmm,
get myself back
mm-hmm,
and understand like what do I want to do?
mm-hmm,
What makes me happy?
mm-hmm,
And then I talk about these gifts and pivoting
mm-hmm,
is like I did so many things. Like I was an analyst and then I did this and I was a project manager and I did this and I got a master's in this and I did. And so then when I started my own business, I was like, oh, well, yeah, I know how to do that, or I know that person, or, and it's funny, a lot of the relationships I made in my corporate life, those relationships still stayed. So it was like I wasn't and that's the thing I had to learn. I wasn't my job. And I think I was raised, or I had that where you are what you do. And some of my friends would joke to be like, hi, I'm Kenge. I work for, I work for this company. And they're like, we don't care where you work. We care about you as a person. And I had to like realize that.
Yeah.
So so when had my own business, like I wasn't, trying to be a director. I was like working at a tent, passing out T-shirts, like whatever I needed to do, that's what I did. And it was actually, I really, really enjoyed it. I found joy in little things. I found joy with the service piece, giving back. And I think that's just kind of what I just started doing.
That's what you started doing. I love that so much. As you were talking, I was just, and I've said this before, like our lives are like this. We're just in parallel, just like that. And so it's just interesting that you said enough is enough, and then you walked away. And I started a job, and I knew the first day I got there. Like driving I wasn't even in the building yet, just driving there, I knew that was not the decision for me. And so I was there 3 months, and that was like the first time in my adult life I was like, I can't do this. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't do this. And so I walked away with nothing lined up. I'm here now. We can figure it out.
People were like, what are you going to do next? I was like, I have no idea. Yeah. I'm just going to go home. I was doing, taking a yoga class at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Right.
I was like, I don't know.
This yoga's nice, though.
I know. They were like, and I felt, it's weird because I felt guilty.
Yes.
Because I've always had a job since like high school. Like,
yes.
I mean, I worked at, Taco Bell, Chi-Chi's, all the bank teller. Like I had a job. I've always had a job since I was 16. And to be 50 with no job, I was like, what am I going to do?
What is this life?
What is this life? What is this even? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so that's when I was like, okay, well, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
So I just started like doing this stay-at-home mom thing. I would just find yoga at 3:00 in the afternoon, or I would just go for a walk in the neighborhood, and just, meet people for coffee. And then luckily within like maybe 3 months, I started getting projects, and then it's just grown into like a nice, consulting business that, and I enjoy doing what I'm doing. Like I enjoy the people I work with. I've had different projects. It's taken me all over the country. So I think, I know that I would not have done any of these things if I would have stayed where I was. And I know that I would, like you're saying, like we got a little spot in Chicago that we go to. It's not fancy. It's just a little spot for the weekends. But I know if I would have stayed, we would not have bought that. We would not, I was thinking so much in the box at the time, because especially a project manager, it's like the triple constraints, time, resources, whatever. And I learned the power of the not the or. And I'm like, how can I do this and that? And once I changed my mindset, and I was able to like think differently, and it's been great. Like I actually appreciate the fact that I had to go through that to come out on the other side, because I know I would still be doing the same thing had I not had that experience.
Yeah, and so as I'm listening, and we kind of started off talking about courage. I know we started off talking about confidence, but I also see a very high level of courage in the decisions that you've made to jump, to not see where you're going, but to know that you have the tools that wherever you go, you'll be able to manage. And one of the things that I often see is people will say, jump, don't worry about it.
Oh,
but
it's it's jumping with intention.
It's jumping with intention, and it's also jumping with tools
Yeah.
to manage.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are like, just jump. I'm like, oh, hold on.
No, and that's true. It's what's in your wheelhouse. So it's
Right.
like if I want to go on American Idol,
Right.
that would be bad. That would not, because
I'm quitting my job because I'm going to sing. I'm going to be a star.
I would be a star. Like, well, have you sung? No. Do you have? No. But like when for instance, when I started my own business, like I got tools. You talk about the tools. So I went at first. I mean, I know you can do this online now, but I went to a lawyer. I drafted a LLC. I got a PO box, so I have a business address. I got QuickBooks. I got a checking account, a corporate card, got an accountant, like all the things that you need for a business. I joined every single startup group I could find, and I went to the coffee houses with my little backpack and vest on, like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur now. I did whatever I thought you needed to do as an entrepreneur.
Right.
So that is true. Like I don't want to make it sound oversimplify, my journey, but it is like I did put in the work. I did the research, and I networked, and I talked to other entrepreneurs and other people, in this area. And so that's one thing I think is important. So it's like it's coming up with a plan for whatever your pivot is.
Right.
And so I think that is one thing that I did do, and I kept a spreadsheet, or I got a board for all my projects. So I still did all the things I did like in a company, but I just did it for myself. So all the lunches and coffees and events and all the things and networking events, I still went to them, but I went to them on behalf of myself and my business. And I think that was a different mindset. It's like, okay, now I'm not wearing this badge or hat from this company. I'm wearing it for me.
Right. You have your own badge.
I have my own little T-shirt or whatever, my own little logo. I probably made myself in Canva for the first time.
Right.
But it's just like, because you have those, like you're right, you have those tools. And I think it's easy to say, well, I don't know anything. I don't know anybody.
I'm just going to do it.
I'm just going to do it. But do it with intention and come up and who do you know, and partnerships. Like we talked right before we started talking about you've teamed up with a phenomenal team of women.
And you.
Yeah. You helped me on projects.
Yeah.
And I think it's just having those people having those people and having those, people who've done it. Like I have a very great friend who's been an entrepreneur most of her life, and she's been excellent, and she's kind of guided me through this process too. And I think it's just finding those people, or seeking out or building new networks of people
Absolutely.
that can support you.
So now, and as we're talking about pivot, I think this is a perfect segue into this new venue that you're operating in now. Tell us about that.
Yes. So my new thing is I started in Kenge's gallery, which is a pop-up African art gallery, which is totally different from the standard like project management type consulting that I've been doing. But it all came to be from my partnerships. We're talking about partnerships. So there's a community partner who had about 90 African artifacts that were part of a collection, and then the collection needed to go someplace just because of they were moving and they needed to find a home for this collection. So they reached out to me. I don't know. They just reached out to me, and then I said yes. So same kind of thing where it's like I say yes. And then I figure out, okay, well, what am I going to do with this? And my thing is like, I don't want to sell it. Go back to my dad. He's like, sell it. I'm like, no, I'm not selling it.
I love your father.
My dad is like, yeah. But anyway, so what I decided to do was, it was a gift to me. And I believe in like, just the whole journey that I'm on. I believe it was a gift to me, and I needed to gift to others. I just feel like this was something that was given to me that I want to share with other people. And so it's about 90 pieces from West Africa. There's some pieces from like Nigeria, Mali, just all these different places. And so what I'm doing is I'm working with the University of Milwaukee, University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. and they're helping me do research, and they're helping me create exhibits. And my goal is to really share this with the community, put together community exhibits or private shows for different groups, different companies, also students. I do a lot this last couple of years around STEM education and youth, and I really have a strong passion to really help nurture the next generation. So I want to expose kids to history and know that we come from greatness. And I did my own DNA journey and found out that I am aligned with a lot of the pieces. So I have, within me, I have Nigerian, I have Benin, I have Senegal, I have all these aspects within my own ancestry, my own DNA, that I want to, let people know that they have it within them. So, yeah, so it's interesting. And I've gotten a lot of great partners so far. And I have a show I'm working on in October.
Nice. Is it going to be here? Local?
It'll be in Milwaukee.
Okay.
I'm not sure when you're airing this, but like every couple of months, I have a couple of shows already scheduled where I'll be having it for community to view and see and that kind of.
Perfect. Well, that's wonderful. I think that I'm just so, we've talked about kind of the courage, we've talked about confidence, we've talked about pivoting. And this is one of those things, it's so unlike Kenge, but just like Kenge, right? Because you're project manager, you're organizing, you're orchestrating, and now you have this whole creative thing of pieces of art that you gotta,
It's like a whole nother circle. Because it's funny because, and you reminded me because like I spent most of my life in this like corporate bubble. And then the entrepreneur bubble was like, who are these entrepreneurs? Like, I never thought that I could be an entrepreneur. I thought that's something that people who are brave did, like to own business. And I'm like, wow, who does that? Like, that's a lot. So now I did that for like 5+ years. And now it's like artists. Like, I don't know, like, I mean, like artists, like my brother, he's very creative and he does a lot. But I'm like, oh, my brother's the artist in the family. I'm the, bean counter. I'm not the person who does all of the artistics. I'm just the person who keeps, But I'm actually really, really loving this side.
So tell me, are you going to maintain both? Are you going to keep your consulting and do this, or are you going to?
Yeah, I think I plan to do both. Like I said, I still have my business and consulting, and I still do some projects, but a lot of it now is just doing research. So I'm like reading about how these pieces were used, reading about the customs, understand. A lot of the pieces are like religious artifacts from West Africa, or like family relics, or like when people pass away and they have ancestors, they create statues of their ancestors. So understanding that, understanding history, and then also like from a tech piece, I want to somehow include tech, like something new, interesting way to display things too. And I wanted to make it an experience so people are engaged in the art. And I know there's a lot of, controversy around provenance and what things belong to where. And so I just really want to do due diligence and do research and understand the journey of these pieces and the significance of them.
I am just so amazed by that. But what I heard you say, I just want to spend a little bit of time with this, is you said, my brother is the creative one, and then I'm more of the, I don't like the word being counter. I
shouldn't say that because my mom was an accountant.
Yeah, right.
So she used to always say that. So that's why I know I don't think that people say that obviously anymore.
But I understand exactly what you mean in terms of you were the black and white, the very tangible, the dollars and cents, just the really tangible things. What have you done to get yourself out of this is what I am, as opposed to, and you talked about it, moving from I do one thing to I do a multiplicity of things. Yes. How did you get there?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like the necessity of the beast, especially owning your own business, because you have to wear every hat. You have to wear, at least initially, the accountant hat, the sales hat, even like creating your own flyer hat,
the
marketing hat, all the things. So I'm thinking and one thing is interesting is that had I gotten the art, while I was working in a company,
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't have been able to know what to do with it as quickly as I've been able to do it. But
Mm.
because I've had 5 years of like building something from nothing, building something from scratch, putting together a proposal, reaching out to potential funders, writing grants, like all the things that I had to do for my own business, being able to do this, basically I spun up a second business. So what I did was I opened up a separate LLC. I opened up another account. And so I have basically a second business, and I treat it like a second business. So that's really what I'm doing. So all the things I did for my first thing with sales, research, like I'm saying, I created my logo from Canva. What some people may see that and be like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I could tell. But it's like, you do what you need to do, and that scrappiness in it, and then partnerships. Like I've reached out to people that I know who have space, where we collab on space, so I don't have to pay a ton of money for space. Reached out to a professor at UWM who, as part of his role, does community, support. So he's basically in kinding me his time. So I think there's a lot of things you do as a scrappy entrepreneur. I'm learning how to do as a scrappy art exhibitor.
I love that so much. So I have this question for you. When you think about where you are today, what is something that you know now, right, over this last, 5-7 years journey that you wish you would have known 15, 20 years ago?
Yeah. I think for me, I think it's just that, we talked about the confidence piece and the imposter syndrome piece. I think, and that I'm smarter, or I want to say smarter than I thought I was, but like I'm maybe more capable of things or greatness than I thought I was. I think I was always looking, like you were saying, for validation. So if I got a raise, then I felt like I was smart or I was worthy. And then if I didn't get a raise, or I didn't get a promotion, or I didn't get a job, then I felt like I was not worthy.
Right.
And one thing about entrepreneurship is like you have to take, at least for me, that weight out of your psyche. Like, so if you say no, if someone says no, if I do a proposal or whatever, and they're like, no, that's not what we want, or that's not our time, or we don't want to do this, then I just say, okay, and I move on. Like, I can't, thank you. And like, also welcome feedback. Like, when I was little, I think if someone gave me feedback, I would cry, I would take it personal. And now I appreciate feedback because if someone would have to care enough to give you feedback. If they didn't care, they wouldn't give you feedback. So I had to make a shift and welcome feedback, and also like you look at that feedback and be like, that's something that I didn't think about. And so welcome feedback, welcome collaboration, and I think that would have been helpful in the past, where I think I would have just cringed at the thought of someone criticizing me, or me not getting something was personal. I think just taking that piece out of it.
So we've talked a lot about kind of you and your life, your journey. And we've just touched a little bit on your husband and your family. And as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking, okay, whole husband, whole kids, now 2 businesses, right? And then all of the other things that you do in the community. What are you doing to create a healthy rhythm so that no one is feeling, including you, that you're operating at a deficit?
Yeah. Well, I think I've really, doesn't seem like it, because you say all that, I'm like, oh, that's a lot.
And you're right, yeah.
I was like, that's a lot of stuff. But honestly, I feel like I work less. It seems like a lot, but I think when I was working for a company, and I remember especially with my kids growing up, like I would, anybody in IT, we'd have, especially if you have like an offshore team or whatever, or a tech team, we'd had calls at 7 a.m. while I'm trying to get my kids to school, and then you work all day, then you have, and then you work, you come home, you make dinner, you work all night, then you get up again and you
Start
work all
over.
day.
Yeah.
And so I think I've been really radically conscious about my time.
Mm-hmm.
So I really try not to schedule a lot of meetings on like Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
My husband only works like half a day Friday, or most Friday he's off. He works like 4 days a week now, and that's when we have family time.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we go to Chicago, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just biking on the lake. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's just what I do. And then we may come back home, work for a couple hours, and then go to dinner. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just a balance
Mm-hmm.
of that. I
Mm-hmm.
think, and then I like come home like everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
watch reality TV, eat popcorn, drink a
Mm-hmm.
glass of wine. I think just living your best life. And when I'm tired, I stop. Like, and I feel like, okay, what's the difference between me working till midnight or going to bed and then just getting up in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and answering that email? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I used to think I had to be in a 24-hour clock
Mm-hmm.
where if someone said something to me at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., I had to answer it at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not a critical issue, if it's just like a, hey, what about this? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I can answer it in the morning at
Mm-hmm.
7 or 8 when I'm up. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what I've learned to
Mm-hmm.
do is really be radical with my time and think about like, does this
Mm-hmm.
need to happen at this point?
And so I think that is such a powerful. I'm listening to everything, and I'm hesitating because I'm trying to put it right thematically together.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what I hear you saying is that you have been able to really take control
Mm-hmm.
of your life, meaning you're managing your time. You have shifted your mindset so that you can do all of the things that come
Mm-hmm.
your way. And you can do all of the things because you also say no to things that
Yeah.
you know that do not serve you.
And I think that's key. I think as the people pleaser service person,
Right, right, right.
I said yes to literally everything. I
Mm-hmm.
was yes on every committee. I was yes at every organization. And not only was I a part of it, I somehow chaired it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like not just at the meeting. I was,
Running the
being in
meeting.
the meetings. And now what I like to see is like now I feel like I don't want to like date myself as
Mm-hmm.
being seasoned or whatever, but I love to see this next generation of
Mm-hmm.
like the people that I used to see that I see in myself at those ages with
Mm-hmm.
the 20s and the 30-year-olds and the early 40s-year-olds who were like still have all that energy,
Mm-hmm.
still have all that drive, are still climbing.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to pass the torch.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm in an organization and we had this woman who probably like a good 10, 15 years younger than me. And she ran this event for us. Like she ran this event for this organization. And she ran it. Like she was on point. She was on target. And my whole role was to bring snacks. Like that was it. Like, Kenge, can you bring snacks? I was like,
Sure.
I will bring the best snacks. You will have. We will have the best snacks. But and can you make copies? I'm like, yep, I can make copies and I can bring snacks.
Mm-hmm.
What else? That's all you need? Good. And then I let her, and then she ran it. I'm realizing that I don't have to run everything.
Mm-hmm.
I can take a step back. I can let other people lead. And if there's things that like, I know, like you're talking about as an entrepreneur, you have to do all the hats. But if there's a hat that I know I'm not good at or I need support on, like that's when I call on a friend or I'll bring in another consultant for that piece. So I think not having to do everything all the time for myself has been helpful.
Absolutely. That has been transformational for me as well. So I am with you wholeheartedly. And so as we're preparing to wrap up, I so appreciate this time. This has been so good. But as you know, the tenets of this podcast, the kind of the three anchors or the three pillars is embrace, empower, and elevate. When you think of those words and then you bump that up against the life that you've lived thus far, and I know so much is yet to come, but what does that mean to you? How does that resonate with you?
So like, just like how do you're saying like uplift and elevate based on my life?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what does those words mean to you to embrace, to empower, and to elevate?
I think embrace is really something too that as part of this journey has been good to me. I think just embracing my friendship,
Mm-hmm.
being intentional with people that I want to spend time with,
Mm-hmm.
and just embracing not only my friends but myself,
Mm-hmm.
and what makes me happy, what serves
Mm-hmm.
me, where do I find joy,
Mm-hmm.
and then empower. I think, like you're saying, like you're giving other people a chance to do
Mm-hmm.
that next thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're passing the torch. You're
Mm-hmm.
letting them, like I'm always there if they need something,
Mm-hmm.
but letting them lead, let them shine,
Mm-hmm.
let them get their space.
Mm-hmm.
And then elevate is just even just all of us,
Mm-hmm.
uplifting all of us together.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's, uplifting someone who's, just starting, and then also like some of the things that I'm trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
like having people help me get to where I need to be and helping me help others. So
Mm-hmm.
I think those are really key, core
Mm-hmm.
pillars as you're trying to really get to that next stage.
Yeah. And I gotta say, Kenge, full transparency here is that I think you are phenomenal at that.
It's
And this is
funny.
not me trying to validate or
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
sorry.
but seriously, our time together, our relationship beyond the podcast,
Mhm.
you've always been very supportive. You've always been very informative. You've always been very challenging, and that's what friends should be like too, right? Not
Yeah.
just everything you want, but really, I'll never forget we went to lunch and you said, "Well, what's holding you back?" And I was like, "What do you mean? No, what's holding you back? Why don't you just do it?" And I'm like, I gotta think about that. That's a really good question. Let me ponder. And we need people like you in our circle. So if you guys don't have you a Kenge, get you a Kenge. Not mine, but get you one. But with that said, thank you all for joining. Thank you for joining me again, Kenge. And you all remember to live life empowered. Take care.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.